Welcome to EPG Pathashala. I am Dr. C. Nagalakshmi, working as Assistant Professor, Department of Sociology, University of Hyderabad. The current paper to be discussed is the methodology of research in sociology, and the name of the module is academic writing, language, presentation and citation. To start this module, it has to be noted that academic writing is an art. At the same time, it is also a discipline. It is important to know the stringent rules that are there in academic writing, the language that is used, the way in which it is presented, and the importance of citation. And yet, with the same stringent rules, academic writing can also be a very creative endeavor. It's also very fulfilling. So this module will familiarize you with the ways in which one can write academically to different audience, as well as the fact that one has to avoid plagiarization. One also has to conform to certain rules and regulations regarding the academic language that is used, and you'll also be familiarized with the different sets of formats for academic writing. Academic writing is an art and a discipline. As much as it is creative, it requires practice, knowing the stringent rules and regulations on how to write. Academic writing is also impersonal, precise, and it involves describing and redistributing views by an author. There is a shaping and reshaping of ideas and concepts within a discipline or subject matter which is under study. It is a creative process because one has to produce or create and recreate knowledge about the world from the existing knowledge. This process is possible through the use of concepts, associating or reassociating them only to offer a new perspective and analysis. It is technical, using complex terminology with precise referencing and footnoting system. The level of complexity in academic writing varies, and authors can choose the use of technical knowledge depending on the medium of publication and its audience, and this is mentioned in other modules as well. Depending on the reasons for writing an academic article, the types of academic writing also varies. These are a dissertation or thesis for doctoral work, a research article for scientific journal publication, a conference paper to be presented to a live audience, a report for a research project, a book or an article in an edited volume. There could be a book review, a literature review for other general public as audience, and also sometimes for specialists or experts in a chosen subject. Some of the academic presentations include posters also and are very creative. The first section in this module is planning for academic writing. Research work precedes the planning, writing, editing and reviewing activities, which are the general phases for writing. Research in the form of fieldwork and data collection is the starting point for writing, followed by the phases of planning, writing and editing. They may or may not occur in any fixed order depending on the author's working style. Initially, more time is spent on thinking and planning for actual writing and editing, and reviewing happens later. The writer's clarity of thought and the personal preference usually shape this process. Critical thinking is one of the most important requirements for academic writing process. Authors must inculcate critical thinking while reading and reviewing the existing knowledge in the form of books, studies, research papers, journal articles, etc. about a chosen research theme or area of research. Now the writing process. Earlier or prior to the advent of computers and software, authors and writers, they had to maintain manuscripts of their writing and keep track of the content. But word processing has made the task of writing easier to manage drafts. There are essentially 4 stages in this process of actual writing, and these are the thinking and preparing stage, which is pre-writing. This stage starts when the research and data gathering ends. Actual writing and keyboarding stage, which is drafting. This stage involves converting ideas into words, sentences, and further into paragraphs. This is free writing stage where the sequence or order of the sections written are flexible. There is a redrafting and revising stage, and this can also be called as tuning. The draft after free writing is refined considering the audience for whom the draft is being written. The phrases, the sentences and subsections are checked for a logic and structure, flow, the research question, concepts, and the association with data refinement in the perspective that is adopted. The presentation itself is thoroughly revised at this stage. There is a language and proof checking stage later, which is editing. Proofreading involves a complete and comprehensive checking for grammar, the tense, and the voice of the author and the content. Issues like citation and referencing, font and its size, use of syntax in the paragraph, etc. also matter in this stage. Sometimes the draft can be sent to a language specialist for check on consistency, grammar, spelling, and continuity of the theme. Objectivity and precision are the primary factors that differentiate academic writing from other forms of writing. To achieve objectivity, academic writing begins with the choice of research problem and a question. It is followed by definitions and use of concepts, developing an argument and discussion, following a logic and structure, data collection and analysis with some cause and effect, analysis, cohesion in content and generalizations arrived at using the data collected in analysis. Acknowledging sources through referencing and citations are important parts of academic writing. The writing process and the end product actually depend on the personal style of the author, as mentioned before. There is sometimes an inclusion of graphic presentations such as tables, charts, figures, bar diagrams, visuals as examples and illustrations in the content, and of course there are footnotes and endnotes, etc. to make the writing more interesting. Academic writing in the field of sociology is similar to the above and requires a certain set of skills and orientation. Building knowledge in this discipline requires some basic principles of sociological imagination and locating the problem under consideration for research in a social context. There is a need for the author to view the social realm in an objective manner and yet be a part of it. The steps to follow can be in this sequence as framing a question, developing an argument or debate on the theme or topic or area with a logic and structure, editing and formatting and acknowledging sources. Academic writing and research methods. The format and style of academic writing follows either a quantitative or qualitative techniques of research and even mixed methods, and these often differ. This is because these three differ in terms of their research design, tools and techniques of data collection, approaches to analysis and the collected data. The approach to writing also differs in these three methods. The disclosure of the details of research findings as well as analysis of data in the text of the report is not done in the same way in both quantitative and qualitative research. A diligent researcher discerningly uses a specific method to suit the research and focus with an eye for detail and to present the study and its contribution to sociological knowledge in an interesting way to the readers. A mix of secondary and primary data, prudence in use of quotations from respondent interviews and other studies appropriately is a hallmark of creativity of the authors. We therefore need to know the different styles and formats of academic writing for both the quantitative and qualitative research. Now coming to the quantitative methods in academic writing, according to Professor Alan Bryman, the structure of an academic article using quantitative method findings can be as follows. An introduction, a theory section, details of data, the measurement of data, methods and models, results and conclusion are the sequence of this writing and report. The introductory section establishes the focus of the article or paper, the issue or the area or topic or theme, and situates the same within the existing literature and the contribution it tries to make to the area of focus. The theory section sets out to present the concepts that are in use with the theoretical frameworks mentioned and arrive at a hypothesis to establish a connect among the concepts. On the basis of clear research questions that are formulated, they have to be answered with aims and objectives drawn from the same. Data section is where the authors present the numerical data they drew on for their research, and the data sets and sampling techniques are outlined along with sample sizes, the response rates for the tools such as questionnaires and interviews. The software or package used for processing data is also mentioned, and the time taken for data collection has to be mentioned in this section. Measurement is the next related section where the collected data is measured with appropriate units, the individual characteristics, attributes, and the variables are described. Methods and models is the next section where the interrelationship among variables is conceptualized. This can be done at various levels like univariate with one variable, bivariate with two variables, and multivariate with many variables using statistical analysis. The model also presents how the variables are linked in terms of direction, proportion, and correlation. Writing up a quantitative study requires a steady focus on the questions and objectives, a sequential analysis, especially while presenting tabulations and relationships among variables. Otherwise, the data will drive the writing and the objectives sometimes may be lost in the process. The hypothesis guides how the interrelation among variables is unfurled in the discussion and analysis section with a positive or a negative relationship among variables. The context of the study determines the findings and their relevance. Now coming to the qualitative research writing. Qualitative methods and findings yield a slightly different structure for writing. It can be as follows, including introduction, background, methods, findings, discussion, and conclusion. The structure also might vary with the preferences of the authors, and the sequence may be more or less the same. It may be noted that qualitative studies can yield slightly more creative and interesting reports due to the nature of research itself being in-depth and descriptive in its nature. The most important sections are the findings and discussion for a qualitative research report. Now, writing ethnography. Ethnography is based on a methodology which is used for anthropological studies, but popular and pertinent from sociological studies also, and it relies heavily on direct observation to generate in-depth knowledge about a specific culture or theme. You may also refer for details on ethnography, the module RMS number 25. Observation itself can be participant or non-participant, and the field level work includes collection of other relevant secondary data on the area or theme of study. Writing ethnography involves a phase of pre-writing where the authors formulate the questions they seek to answer. This is followed by an intensive phase of field work and data collection, resulting in an extensive documentation as field notes, transcripts of interviews with participants, descriptions of physical locations, settings, physical artifacts, etc. The organization and structure of ethnography includes the voices of respondents through quotations with details of the field data. Shaping of the content of the reports or papers happens through multiple drafts, revised versions, as it happens with any other forms of writing. The structure of an ethnographic report can include an introduction, the methodology section, findings and results with analytical categories that are used in the report, and a conclusion. The next section is about the writing for mixed method studies. The mixed method strategy can yield substantive results, interesting insights from field work with judicious mix of secondary data as combination of methods is ideal for social science research. A research report based on mixed methods tries to combine the strategies of both qualitative and quantitative ones. Since both types of data collection are employed, structure of writing is successful only when both are integrated and linked into a common analytical ground based on the concepts and the theory, the research question posed, which are usually presented in the introductory section. The research question and the research design offer common ground and clarity to using both the methods and elaborating the emerging findings. Writing structure of the mixed methods reports follows the sequence of both quantitative and qualitative researches, which are discussed above. Research methods bearing an impact on writing leads to the next section where the various genres of writing are presented. Now coming to the presentations and structure. Original and authentic research and academic presentations are an integral part of good quality academic work. The use of word processing and the presentation using slides with the PowerPoint effectively is a task one has to master. So the important genres of academic writing are books, journal articles, articles in edited volumes, a thesis or dissertation, a literature review, a conference paper, posters, book reviews, letters to editors, annotated bibliography, and the last but not the least are working papers and occasional papers. One can follow the American Sociological Association manuscript styles for the logical subdivisions and understanding. The web page is a self-explanatory one, and it gives the text and format and style to be used with very precise instructions regarding details of font size and margins also. For an academic journal article, the general structure includes the title, author, details, abstracts, keywords, introduction, methodology, argument and content, details of data collected, analysis and discussions, some conclusions, footnotes and references. Some authors prefer endnotes and a bibliography, and it may be noted that a list of reference includes only that literature which is cited in the text, while a bibliography may include those that have indirectly helped the author to write the paper. Details for the structure of dissertation and thesis may have a title, a certificate by the supervisors, list of contents, tables, charts, maps, acknowledgements, a preface if possible. There can be a specific introduction, a literature review, research methodology, findings which can be divided into appropriate chapterization, a set of conclusions and recommendations sometimes, but more importantly references and appendices. A book may contain aspects of thesis writing listed above, though the authors may combine or make short discussions on review of literature and methodology in the introductory chapter itself. For a conference paper presentation, usually the secretariat or organizing body provides a template to be used by the authors, and the slides display the details of format. However, some authors prefer to prepare their own templates with the subsections such as those explained before. A PowerPoint file can be saved as a presentation file, or some authors prefer to save it as a PDF format to keep the file safe and sometimes to save disk space. Now coming to the ethics of academic writing, academic integrity and avoiding plagiarism. Literature that exists is the intellectual property of the concerned authors. Original and indigenous concepts, texts, literature are precious and should be given ample respect. The challenge for academic writing is in building a comprehensive literature review, which is in the form of writings and research work done by other scholars over a long period of time. So, literature review thus is the core of academic writing. Acknowledging the sources of the ideas, words of other scholars is the way to achieve academic integrity, raise the standards of writing and discipline in one's own work. Once an idea is borrowed, the text should be either used in quotation format with inverted commas and page number has to be mentioned, or if it is paraphrased, the author and year are to be placed in parentheses within the text. Otherwise, a footnote can be effectively composed and placed with the details of source and with an explanatory content. Failure to acknowledge a source that has already been quoted in the work in a particular area is not desirable in academic writing. This is termed as plagiarism. It is a serious offense, and an author may forego the rights on such text and may forego any credit for it. Any document used to write a paper should be cited within the text or placed in the bibliography or references. Now, ethics and academic language, some precautions that have to be taken. Research findings and reports and all other forms of academic writing are now widely accessed by readers across the world. Academicians and authors must now be aware of the implications this has for the language they use, especially while referring to any specific group or community. Readers now belong to diverse groups across the world and are sensitive to stereotyping even if it is used inadvertently. Thus, the use of stereotyped categorization that exists in common parlance cannot be used in academic writing, and authors have to be sensitive to follow the rules of equality and diversity in the terminology that is used. Academic language and writing itself has undergone a transformation with the widening of the social science research horizon. Research in sociology and in social sciences includes the issues of marginalized populations and communities, which were hitherto excluded, along with the oppressive and exploitative relations. Sociological research is now more inclusive, and reciprocal change is required in the language used by authors. This requires an awareness of the terminologies that can be universal and equitable, along with precautions for authors. An author must follow the following precautions while writing. He or she must use gender-inclusive language, which is also non-sexist language, non-racist language, non-disablest language, and use of non-communal or ethnic categorization. Gender-inclusive language. Research can include and involve people of all genders. While writing, use of gender-specific terminology such as man and his words and sentences can lead to many misconceptions. While women readers may feel excluded and offended, male readers may perceive that the writing is specific only to the men. Precautions to be followed for gender-inclusive language are as follows. Do not use man to mean humanity. Use the word people. Avoid the use of the word his to refer to a respondent unless it is specific reference. Using his/her in sentences is one option. Alternately, one can use the word their, and pluralizing simplifies the sentence structure along with inclusivity. For example, a sentence like the respondents were asked whether he or she was comfortable in their work environment can be replaced with a pluralized sentence such as respondents were asked whether they were comfortable with their work environments. This small change actually ensures ease for authors and readers in conveying equality and diversity. Categories such as occupations and reference to a position in organization are another issue in academic language. These include, for example, chairman, mailman, fireman, etc. And they have to be replaced by a non-sexist language as mentioned in the list given in a document that is already there in the website. For example, instead of saying layman, one can say layperson or non-expert. Instead of saying chairman, one can say chair. Instead of saying manpower, you can say employees. Instead of saying forefathers, one can actually use the word ancestors. Instead of saying founding fathers, one can use the word founders. Now coming to race, ethnicity and community inclusive language. Research in academic language on ethnicity, race and minorities among the marginalized population ideally must remain unbiased and objective. Words used as stereotypes and that they can lead to unnecessary prejudice and conform to older unscientific beliefs among readers. Words on color and racism are not part of academic vocabulary. Careful choice of non-racist terms while referring to some populations across the world, countries and continents and ethnicities can be chosen appropriately from the following. There are words like African, Caribbean, West Indian, American, Asian, South Asian, British, civilization, indigenous, developing countries, etc. This is not an exhaustive list, but it can indicate the objective reference to people of various groups. Now coming to the inclusive language used for disabilities and the challenged people. This is the third category of terms used in research for the more sensitive population groups that are differently abled persons, commonly called disabled, and they have to be referred to with sensitivity and equality. According to the British Sociological Association, the following are the precautions when we are referring to them. Using medical labels must be avoided as this may lead to a misconception that they are patients and it is not appropriate. One should not use the word disabled at all, as disability is not a disease. The term differently abled person is sometimes more appropriate for such people. In case one is referring to a condition, one can use a sentence such as a person with the specific condition and not the medical term of the disease. One should also avoid the use of words such as mental retardation and mentally retarded. It should be completely avoided. Avoid acronyms while referring to people sometimes, which are like the SEN child, etc. If the condition has a specific name, one can use the word with apostrophes. So instead of saying handicap, one should say disability. Instead of saying abnormal, you can say different or disabled person. One can usually use the word visually impaired instead of using the word blind. There are many other examples which are available in the document. They can be referred to. Coming to the next important section called citations. Scientific and academic writing is based on citations, and they are very valuable to authors who cite and are cited too. These are signs of academic integrity and honesty. According to the web-based Wikipedia, a citation is an abbreviated alphanumeric expression embedded in the body of an intellectual work that denotes an entry into the bibliographic references section of the work for the purpose of acknowledging the reference of the works of the others to the topic of discussion at the spot where the citation appears. They enable readers to accurately track down the sources used in a paper or book by way of footnotes, a bibliography, or a reference list. Using citations improves the credibility of the authors in academic writing. Relevant and appropriately cited sources can show the reader the dedication of an author to the research craft and art. So it is important to list out the sources of data. For students, use of proper citation proves that they are responsible scholars when their others' ideas are acknowledged. Words, phrases, text, figures, illustrations, images, ideas, tables, graphs, and all explanatory and creative content which can be borrowed from others' work must be acknowledged. They should be quoted, and the source from texts, books, articles, and sometimes databases are important for building academic content and the knowledge base. They are usually found in bibliographies and reference lists and are also collected in article and book databases. There are options for incorporating the words and ideas of other scholars and their contribution into one's own work. It can be done in the following ways: by quoting directly, by paraphrasing, and by summarizing. In other words, one must cite facts, figures, ideas, and other information that is not common knowledge, ideas, words, theories, or exact language that another person used in other publications. Publications that must be cited include books, book chapters, articles, web pages, and theses, etc. Another person's exact words should be quoted and cited with page numbers to show proper credit and make the claim authentic. It is crucial that one must always cite a source and be safe. This can be an advice to all authors across all disciplines. There are some standard elements in the citations and they convey information required to help reader track information. They are as follows. First, author's name, use of last name first, and title of the book, article and journal, date of publication, page numbers, volume and issue numbers for articles and journals. There are different styles used for different elements that are quoted. Depending on the chosen journal or book or thesis or dissertation, authors can choose appropriate style guides. Different journal or publishing houses also follow different citation styles, and these are normally mentioned in the style sheets of the journals concerned. Now coming to the types of citations for academicians. There are essentially 5 important styles, though there are many other formats derived by the various respective disciplinary associations. It should be noted that each style has distinctive rules for citation in the text as well as in the reference or notes. The major citation styles are the American Psychological Association APA style, the Modern Language Association style, which is known as the MLA style, the American Sociological Association ASA style, the Chicago Manual of Style or Chicago style, and the Harvard reference format. Formats vary for article citations and across several categories depending on the number of authors, journal articles, edited books and chapters, and several other parameters. A comprehensive and comparative chart showing the different style guides and the innumerable variation in author numbers, publishing books, journals, and all the combinations for APA, MLA, and CMS styles can be accessed on their websites. For a better understanding of citations, one can refer to a professional journal offering author guidelines. The Indian Sociological Society publishes a journal, namely Sociological Bulletin, which offers clear guidelines to authors for citation, and this is mentioned in the document associated with this self-learning module for citing works within the text. You may refer to the figures and how co-authors can be included and the year of work can be mentioned, and many other details in the document that is attached. Now coming to the citation software. The most complicated task for authors is to compile the citations and references at the end of the document. This is an arduous task and it is made easy by computers and software that can generate the citation style that any journal asks for. Authors also can save their references, add new ones, modify the existing ones to the required format once a database for their respective publications are collected into a database. The software converts references to the chosen format and even arranges them in alphabetical order. A comprehensive guide on the available software types can be accessed at one's own convenience online from the libguides.mit.edu. According to the web page mentioned above, citation software can import citations from databases and websites, it can build and organize a bibliography, it can format citations for papers, it can offer taking notes on articles and save them in the collection that is created for one's own convenience. It can save and organize PDFs, screenshots, graphs, images and other files for research. There is also a comparative note on the three citation software types, namely EndNote, Zotero and Mendeley, to understand the relative benefits of each of them. You may refer to the website www.mendeley.com to access the software, which is easily downloadable onto the desktop or a laptop, and start using the application to choose and import, convert and cite a large database of articles. The software in fact can be integrated with the word processor MS Word to automatically generate references at the end of the document. So use of citation software automatically guides the authors to cite and quote, and this prevents plagiarism. Now coming to the editing and proofing section. Authors may feel at ease once the entire draft is complete, but that's not a job done completely. There is a need to improvise on the style and writing of authors, and they should conduct a thorough proofreading of all the pages. The important aspects that one should bear in mind while editing are whether the article answers the research questions framed. Accordingly, the central argument, discussion and data presented must be checked. Is the paper or article well balanced, or some of the subsections need to be rewritten? For this, some sections can be reframed and reorganized. Is the article conveying the argument or discussion clearly and logically? This requires a check on the flow of writing and any modification in content. Are there any gaps or any aspect forgotten? Authors can add new sections and modify the sections and headings appropriately. Authors should ideally ponder over the document and complete any gaps if found. Checking the uniformity in language, style, font, format, syntax, citation and references are equally significant and challenging tasks. Very often, even computers fail to check some typing errors. A common error is to type two sets of data for a single reference. For instance, year and publication of a book and article cited in the text and in the reference. Authors need to be very careful in managing these professionally. Sometimes this job is offered to a language expert or a proofreader who has experience in handling such tasks. In case of book publishers, there are professional language editors for this specialist job. This task requires diligence and a thorough knowledge of the subject and discipline concerned, apart from command over English language. At a very preliminary level, as mentioned in one of the previous sections, this can also be done by the word processing software such as MS Word. So to conclude this module on academic writing, by now you would have been familiar with the do's and don'ts of academic writing. You would also have noticed that academic writing is a craft as much as it is a science. It is a creative endeavor, it is very fulfilling, and it involves a lot of integrity. There are many rules and regulations regarding plagiarization because one has to avoid plagiarization at any cost. To prove one's own academic integrity and building knowledge legitimately, one has to use several ways in which you can cite the authors. You can also choose to quote the authors. There are different formats in which you can acknowledge the various sources that you would have used in your research. So academic writing thus involves use of language carefully, not using a non-disablist, a non-gender specific language. One can present in different formats and styles of writing. There's also the importance of using computers. That is, the most tough and arduous task of citations can be addressed by using several softwares such as EndNote and Mendeley, which can be easily downloaded, and they can also be integrated with word processing software. Even in the final stages of editing and proving that the final presentation is perfect, one can use software that is available through spell check in Word and other word processing softwares. So one can successfully write academically by knowing the craft and by using the scientific values that are lying behind in knowledge generation and sociology.